Last week, the developer community heaved a big sigh of relief. The Environment Ministry accepted K. Kasturi Rangan panel's recommendations to ease clearance process or procedures for township projects. No longer will developers from across the country have to battle the Environment and Forest Ministry parameters laid out, which by some counts added up to 39 types of clearances. While this is great news for the builder community, totally fed up with the numerous clearances which are needed to start or from start to the finishing of a project, our big question today on the Realty Debate is it good news for the environment and for the safety of people? Lalit Kumar Jain, CMD Kumar Urban Development. Lalitji, thank you very much for joining in on this very smart, something very relevant today in terms of what we should be thrashing out. Dr. Pradipto Ghosh, former Secretary MOEF and Distinguished Fellow Terry from the Delhi studio. There's also Rahul Chaudhary, environmental lawyer, here with me, and Sunil Mantri, CMD Mantri Realty and Vice President Naredco. Mr. Mantri, thank you very much. I'm going to start with you, sir. Sunil, tell me, every time we met, your biggest grouse would be this control that the Centre Environment Ministry had on real estate developers' lives. So, this comes as a big relief?
I think a little bit I will say, Manisha. The whole issue of the environment, I have a slightly different perception. The first of all, whenever a master plan of a particular area or city is finalized, environment angle is being considered, public hearing is given, and all the environment view of that particular area or a city are considered and master plans are prepared. Now, my biggest question, why you need really to give the environment clearance for each and every project which is above 20,000 square meter? It's the biggest question. And if you have a project size, say 19,000 square meter, you don't need. If you are 20,000 and above, you need the clearance. So why is it really required? And whether the single project approval with the environment clearance, is it really going to help? That's the question. Second question to my mind, whatever the NOCs or the permits all over India are issued, they are almost standardized. 99 terms condition % are more or less same. Then really can this job delegated to the municipal corporation or the planning authority, whether this environment body need to clear each and every project is the biggest question in my mind. But nevertheless, these are the issues where I feel the environment authority should come with something novel idea or novel issue, because we are really worried the clearance to each project is taking on an average 1 year to 2 year time. There is a massive delay, and this is happening once you get a IOD or a basic permission, building permission from the government authority. So I'm not willing to accept whether the environment clearance take 1 year or 2 year time is the biggest challenge in front of us. Nevertheless, a little relief that height versus width of the road, wherein the project for last 2 year or 3 year were stuck, a very funny circular or very silly circular, I believe the government has issued. They have said that these are the administrative guidelines. The state may decide, but then each and every state started following up, and it was a big question, and I am at least thankful some relief has come wherein withdrawal of these guidelines has been done. I think that's something good news for all the developers community.
Sunil, you've opened a big Pandora's box. What you're trying to say is that why is an Environment Ministry clearance needed? For God's sake, you leave everything to the local authorities, you'll have in Uttarakhand happening again. I mean, I'm not at all saying that life for developers has to be eased out. The number of approvals is insane. But that's what happens. Dr. Ghosh, come in here. I mean, you do need some kind of Environment Ministry clearances. We are talking about large projects which will have huge impact on the ecology and the environment. How do you do away with that? We've seen, what will MCD do? What have local authorities done in Uttarakhand? This is not even something that I wanted to bring up in this discussion, but that's what Sunil says. And do you agree with that?
Well, let me come to this very limited issue on which the guidelines have been relaxed by the Ministry of Environment and Forest, which has to do with the height and of building and the width of the roads, from which they can access.
Which Sunil said is a big relief.
Yes, which is a big. Now, let us be clear about this. This is a very serious policy concern, because if you recall, last year, a hospital burned down in Kolkata, and scores, maybe hundreds of people lost their lives. 10 years ago, we had the Upahar fire tragedy in Delhi, and once again, scores, maybe hundreds of people, were burnt to death. In each case, the problem was that the firefighters and the fire engines could not get there.
Absolutely.
Okay, that was the policy concern which was addressed. Now, the question of whether this is to be done by the municipal administration or by the state environmental protection agencies, which are actually located in the state, but under the Central Act. The point is that, you see, in the wake of these episodes, there was a lot of public concern that we need to immediately put in place a regulatory measure. The point is that the state, certainly, they can do this, but they need to get their act together. They need to set up the agencies, they need to determine their standards, and they need to have means of enforcement of these regulations. This is not something which can be accomplished in a day. And the Environment Ministry's notification was intended to address this gap until the states got their act together.
Have the states got their act together? Because the Environment Ministry has washed off its hands.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was
because of huge protest.
Yes,
there was nothing else. There was huge protest. And I do understand developers' concern also. I mean, in a city like Mumbai, how do you get a 45 feet road in many of these, or 60 feet road?
True. All right. The point is that I would have been happier if the decision was that this notification would be withdrawn for each state for which they set up this regulatory system at the state level. At that point, it should be withdrawn. Now we have a vacuum. And I am willing to bet my best shirt that all the real estate developers will put pressure on the state governments not to put in place any such regulation even at the state level.
All right, Laliji, come in here. I mean, look at this. Environment Ministry has done away with issuing green clearances for high-rise buildings on the basis of the width of the roads and, of course, how far they are from fire stations. But you still need a regulation, sir. If there is a mishap, what happens? How does the fire protection vehicle even just come in, fire engines just come in to protect the building?
Actually, we are really making a very vague remark in this respect, and we are discounting abilities of local planning authorities. One stray example in Calcutta or somewhere else cannot undermine capabilities of local planning authorities. In Mumbai, which is one of the most dense cities, you will not hear such incidences. So I don't agree that Environment Ministry's withdrawal of a particular notification which was completely infringement of central government's right over state government's right.